Welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast, where we come together to make a difference in the lives of children in foster care and the families who care for them. Foster Friendly communities are part of a nationwide movement by America's Kids Belong that helps people from all walks of life take action and help kids and families thrive. You'll hear from former foster youth, foster and adoptive parents, social workers, faith and business leaders, and other experts on how to engage in meaningful ways. Our hosts Brian, Travis, and Courtney explore inspiring stories of everyday people making a difference in foster care where they live and work.
Welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Mavis, with my sapient co-host, Courtney.
Sapient.
Uh-huh.
It almost sounds like serpent. I don't know if I like that.
It's better than serpent.
Okay.
It means wise.
I'll take it.
Though the serpent was wise and crafty, so maybe there is something there. But I mean it in a good way. I like to give my co-host good adjectives. Once in a while, they're a little squirrely, but today we're not learning about adjectives. We're learning about non-traditional kinship, and we have a great couple today who is in that space. And we're going to be learning from them, from their experience and insights. And I've never met them before, but they're not far down the road from me. So Kayla and Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for having us.
We're looking forward to learning along with everyone else your experiences. And so you guys tell us, first of all, just real quickly, what's your family life like right now, just as far as like facts, so like how many kids you have, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so currently we have four kiddos, four boys. We have twins who are 7. We have our current placement who's 10. And then we have our oldest who is 11. So
Okay, 4 boys,
Please.
1. All right.
yeah. Yes.
Awesome.
Loud and stinky.
That's great.
That's
Yes.
great. It is so weird. Like I have 2 teenage boys. They share a room. We have a lot of kids. So they have to share rooms. And I go in their room and I'm like, they say it doesn't stink. I'm like, guys, it smells every time I come in here. And they like don't even believe me. I'm like, yes, I can smell it. Smell you.
Yeah.
Always give off a funk, that's for sure.
The funky 4. All right.
Well, we don't do couples very often, so it's kind of different. We have 4 people on the screen. Usually we only have 3, so it's fun. But since we do have a couple, let's start by just hearing, how did you 2 lovebirds meet?
Yeah. So we met at the Grizzly Rose on their Sunday night, like family night,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, family night.
To our non-Coloradans, what's Grizzly Rose?
It is a country
Western
dance.
dance bar.
Yeah.
Dance bar.
Do you
Yeah.
know what Grizzly Rose means?
I don't.
I do not.
It's a euphemism for a lady of the night. Let's put it that way. Which is another euphemism.
Great. Well, great.
Yeah. So nice, wholesome place to meet. Okay, great. Go
It's a good
ahead.
place to find your future wife.
Oh, so good. I'm glad you asked this question, Courtney.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay, well, great. So that just tells a lot about us. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was 16 at the time. Chris was 19.
Wow.
That's where we met. He asked me to dance and I said yes. And then he, proceeded to try and, I don't know, date me for a while. And then
I tried to convince her to go camping with all of my other dude friends for years, and she said no.
How'd she resist?
I know.
Holy-
She's like, who else is going to be there? And I'm rattling off dude name after dude name after dude name. She's like, no, not that stupid. So
So, I made a good choice there, waiting. Yeah. And then that's where we met. And then, We started officially dating when I was 19 and got engaged and married when I was 20. So, not too far after that. So,
Great.
Yeah,
yeah.
Awesome.
I love it.
So now let's go fast forward a few years and tell us a little bit. Then you have your own kids, but then you, three boys,
Mhm.
but then you enter into this fostering journey. Tell us about that. How did that happen?
Yeah. So, in about it was 2019 originally, like foster care was like just really big on my heart, like just helping kiddos and really helping people, who maybe some people may not see as like the easiest to help. That was kind of where my heart was. And so in 2019, originally we started through a different county than we're currently registered with right now, or certified with right now. But we went to the orientation, did that, and then COVID kind of happened. And
Mm,
so,
kinda, yeah.
kind of,
It happened.
yeah, it happened. And so we kind of put things on hold. Um, yeah. And then, I guess fast forward now, obviously, now we're certified.
So it took a few years from from your training, and then because of the COVID interruption, then a
Hmm.
few years passed by.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. And so then in, let's see, November of last year, 2024, we didn't decide. One of our kiddos, good friends got placed and in foster care. And that's kind of where we started the journey that we're currently in. So,
So that was probably unexpected, as far as like you didn't think some people that you were friends with would.
yeah,
Well,
yes, yes and
well,
no.
Okay, okay, wait a second. We'll revisit that in a sec.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I got it.
yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's amazing though, that you could have this on your heart and then have something from the outside disrupt the opportunity. Whereas so many times the distance between the motivation to act and the opportunity to act, if they're that far apart, people just lose their motivation.
Mhm.
So that, what kept you guys saying no? We're still, even though there was a several year interruption, we're still interested in this.
Um, I would say honestly, Chris wasn't super it was more me who was like, "I wanna do this." Like, Chris was just kind of
Supportive.
Really?
Yeah.
The woman led and the guy was supportive.
It was
Shocker.
weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
It's
Okay.
rare.
That's rarity. Okay. All right. Never
Yeah.
heard that story
Yeah.
before. Okay.
um
Okay.
so so it was me,
Uh-huh.
being
Yeah.
like, "This is still really on my heart." Like, I'm also a substitute teacher, and so I see a
Mm,
bunch of different kiddos in all areas and all ages, and so, my heart was just really, like, wanting to help the youth in some way or another.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That
That's interesting. I have a dear friend who's kind of like the opposite situation of you guys. Just recently, she had a coworker who's going through some hard things, and she saw some writing on the wall that possibly a kiddo was going to be removed. And so she came to me, knowing I know the system, and was like, "What should I do? Can I get licensed right away? I want to be available if this happens." And it led her to looking into getting licensed. And you guys are kind of the opposite. You looked into getting licensed, but then later, a non-traditional kinship care situation came along. So it was kind of similar, but different in a sense, and different than what a lot of our listeners, it's not typical that you start foster care classes and then ends up being a kiddo, right? Unless you went into it with that specifically on your mind,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Yeah. But you guys told me when we chatted on the phone a little bit, you chatted with me and shared a story about listening to Ellie Flowers, who's actually Brian's daughter. and you heard her talk about checking in on your neighbors. Share that story again, a little bit how that resonated with you guys at that point.
Yeah, so I followed Ellie on Instagram, and this was, oh, years back. A few years back, and I don't know if it was like, an Instagram story or a post, but she was talking about her oldest son, who is now adopted, but at that time was not. And she was talking about how in their first home, she lived a couple blocks away from where he was at.
One block.
Yeah, okay, one block. Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
And she was like, in her story, she was like, I can't help but think like what would have happened if I had like, checked on them, or like how did I know that something like this was going on just a block from my home? How did I not know? You know? Um, and it really resonated with us, with, me. I shared this story with Chris, but just how it literally could just be, a f in the case we're in right now, a friend of our son's. We wouldn't have known that had it kind of not opened our eyes to like, oh, it can be right here. It's not, it can be someone, it's not just this thing where, um, oh, that would never happen to someone I know, or that would never happen to in my neighborhood. Yeah. Um, so yeah, so that kind of, um, yeah, just really like opened our eyes to situations around us.
Yeah, it's easy from the outside just to look around your neighborhood and think, see all the houses that are in decent shape and painted okay, and you got, flowers starting to bloom. You're like, everything's fine. And then behind closed doors, you have no idea what kind of turmoil and trauma might be happening. Okay, before we keep it talking about your guys' experience and insights, for our listeners' sake, let's not assume that they know and understand what traditional kinship care is and what non-traditional kinship care is. So, why don't you guys explain what both those terms mean?
So traditional kinship is, somebody who's within the family, that's willing to help. So it'd be like an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, older brother, sister, grandparents, things of that sort.
Mm-hmm.
So people who are related either by blood or marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kinship. So it's, the idea is, keep them within the family so that they still have those family bonds and ties, and it's less traumatic
Mm-hmm.
um, placement, and they still get, all the culture and everything else that they're used to. And so it's a really good idea to try to shoot for kinship as much as possible, in my opinion, if it's, healthy and people can set up boundaries appropriately and everything else. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay. So that's traditional kinship care. What is in the world is non-traditional kinship care?
Yeah, so non-traditional kinship care is a a person in the child's life who they have a close connection with prior to them being placed. So, who is not related by
Mm-hmm.
or married.
Neutral
Married.
blood. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. So that can be a coach, that could be a teacher. Um, in our case, it could be, the parents of a good friend. And so that is what non-traditional kinship care would be.
Okay. I think that will definitely help some of our listeners understand what that means.
Yeah, and it is, just so our listeners know, it is rising across the nation, which is good. It's good that when a kid is removed from care, that if they can be with somebody they know, of course it's going to be better for that kiddo. And the traditional and non-traditional kinship care numbers are rising. I know in Colorado their goal is to have like 80 some percent of kids when they're removed placed with kinship, whether it's traditional or non-traditional. And again, we know why that would be best, right? When it's safe and viable to be with somebody they know, and it's even good. I mean, sometimes if I know you guys had to cross some state lines and things like that, but sometimes they don't even have to necessarily be fully trained and licensed before they'll place kids into a care because they want that sooner rather than later. And so sometimes there's some things that you can jump through a little bit faster and then maybe go back and do afterward. So
Mhm.
a lot of push for kinship care either way, and there's good reason behind it. So yeah.
Absolutely.
So your guys' son was friends with this kiddo before he came into your home. And you guys know maybe some similar people or school or friends, that just those dynamics of being friends with your son. How do you guys talk with your bio kids and foster placement with this about this situation and what they might experience at school or questions and things like that? How do you guys handle that?
One of the things that we took from our training actually was how he wanted to be referred to or introduced as. And one of the biggest things that we noticed was asking them specifically, how do you want to be
Hmm.
introduced? How do you want to be referred to? And give them that power because nobody wants to be referred to as, oh, I'm so and so's foster kid. Like that's,
Hmm.
I mean, they might want to and they might not want to, but it's ultimately, their feelings that you need to worry about, not how you want to tell the story. It's how they want their story to be told.
Right.
And that was how we went about it. Was we asked our kiddo, how do you want us to introduce you, or do you even want to be introduced? Which was really cool. And he gave us his answer, and we did what he wanted. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Another area where I'd say, so our current placement, and our oldest son, they're in the same grade. And so they're in different classes, but in the same grade. But people ask questions. And so we talked with both boys, like people can ask questions, but you don't need to respond to them. You can just tell them, yeah, it's actually none of your business. Like, I don't feel like talking about that right now. Or, um, like if our son is asked, he can, our oldest son is asked, he can say, that's his story. You can ask him.
Hmm.
And so just giving him that like agency, I guess, around the situation, and just um both of them kind of like, you don't need to explain anything to anybody. Ultimately, like, it's his story. And when and if he wants to explain things to people, he can. um but yeah, kind of just telling them like, you don't owe an explanation to anybody about what's happening right now.
That's good. Both those pieces of advice, really good.
Yeah, for sure. The the whole role playing, I know we do a lot of that in our house too, of if you were asked this, how could you respond? And
Mhm.
like, giving them the words like you said, because sometimes kids wouldn't know or
Mhm.
be uncomfortable in those situations. But once you kind of walk them through that, I think it just gives them that confidence even when those situations arise, because they will arise, and I'm sure they have many times already.
Mhm.
but yeah.
Yeah.
So you just tell our listeners, how long has he been with you guys?
So he was placed in our home on Valentine's Day of 2025. And so he's been with us, you know, almost 2 months. Um, yeah. So.
And that was part of the reason why we wanted you guys on, because we often hear from these people that have years of experience or, they've been doing this for a long time. And to get a fresh perspective, it's also just a new
Hmm.
lens. And to even think about like you guys just freshly went through foster care classes. So you get this call and they say you need to be licensed, you need to go down this route. Because at the time the child was living in another state, right? And then you guys had to do ICPC, which is crossing state lines.
Yep.
which makes it a little more difficult and lengthy. But I'm just curious because you just went through these classes, and now have had kiddo in your house for almost a couple of months. How do you feel those classes prepared you for this placement? And maybe if there's something that you wish training had covered that you're like, oh, wow, I wish we had known this.
So for me, one of the things that I think is super helpful is the chronological age versus the mental age. So, he's 10 years old, and he is very mature in some areas as a 10-year-old would be, or even as a teenager would be. But then there's other areas where I see some of the same traits as my 7-year-olds that he also has. And it's very eye-opening to see that, certain traumas can not help that growth or revert that growth. Um, and you just got to be mindful, and
Yeah.
it's super helpful.
So, Chris, I love that because 20 years ago, when I went through my first training, that also was something that it was like, oh gosh, I had never really thought about that before. And so, without revealing anything specific in your circumstance that you're dealing with, unpack that some more for our listeners. Why would a kid like this, in general,
Mm.
be advanced in some areas and behind in others?
Yeah. So, as far as the advanced portion of it, I mean, when you're in a position where you're forced to maybe take care of yourself and people are absent from your life, you kind of force yourself to grow up in that specific area
Mm-hmm.
of your mentality. Um, where at the same exact moment, you're also being neglected and are not getting those interactions that the everyday kid might get, where they get to grow and experience these things. And so you're lacking in those areas where you didn't get those connections or those experiences. And so you never got to grow in that, or maybe you did get to grow in that. And then something so tragic has happened in your life that that portion of your brain is just like, nope, that didn't happen anymore because this trumps that. And so forget about that, put it on the back burner. You're back here now. So you need to relearn what that means to have this safe
Mm-hmm.
environment to be healthy in or to grow in that.
Yeah, I think so many people, when they imagine what a kid is going through and they think of these adverse experiences they have, or whether it's through something done to them or through neglect, some traumatic things, they think about, well, trauma is what has happened to you. But what they often don't think about is it's also what didn't happen for you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No. And that's not to say that his parents didn't love him or
No.
don't love him. They are great people who are very kind and they do love their kid. And I wish the absolute best for them.
Absolutely.
It's just things happen and people miss marks and it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And that's, man, I just want to pause there too, to not prejudge people,
Mhm.
because you don't know their story. I mean,
Right.
what you know of it is very little, and
Yeah.
what happened and didn't happen to them or for them when they were kids, what might have knocked them sideways, because life can do that. So I appreciate your compassion there.
Mm.
Kayla, what about you? What did that training bring that you were grateful for, or what did it not bring that you wish you still learned?
I would say same with Chris. Like that was kind of eye-opening, in the sense of like, a kiddo can be, yes, this chronological age. Um, but in other ways, whether it's like their maturity, maybe not there. And so, ditto what Chris said. I think in terms of like what we like didn't learn or maybe something that they could have gone over. Um, I think they kind of just try the best they can. I mean, every case is so different, so different. So I think it's really hard to um expect everything to be covered, I
Mm.
guess, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's the thing that's nice about having resources like, this podcast or books or your caseworker or friends on Instagram, or whatever who you can reach out to and ask those questions, not in a detailed way, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
they kind of just try the best they can.
Yeah.
I always say that I feel like the real learning comes when the kids enter your home because like
Right.
you're saying they can't teach to every single thing or there'd be years long training.
No.
But yeah, they do the best. And then I feel like there's certain parts of the training though that should be retaught. Like, okay, now we're a year in. Let's go back and revisit this and learn these things again. Because I feel like then it would really sink in at a different level than, before you really know what you're getting into or before you know what it's like to have a kid from a hard place in your home.
Yeah,
And I just
absolutely.
want to share, I teach the Colorado training. So I know exactly what you guys just got trained in. And that's when I teach it, I tell my participants, this is the number one thing you need to understand and take away from this is understanding kids' different ages and stages and why and how you can cope with that, how you can help them through that. And I've done this for years, right? But I did not explain this to my daughter. So she was with us since age 15. She was 20 years old before I sat her down and explained to her these different ages and stages and how she might be one way socially versus emotionally versus cognitively. And her eyes were so big when I was explaining this to her. And she's like, Mom, why did you never explain this to me before? Like, it gives me context to why I am the way I am in certain ways. And I never said to her, I never once said, like, I think you are this age emotionally or this age cognitively. But she said,
Mm.
Mom, this is where I think I am these four different ages. And she said for herself exactly what I would have said for her. And it was just so like,
Mm.
oh, I mean, again, she was an adult, but helpful for them too to understand, not saying to go explain this to your kiddo who is 10, right? Or oven.
Yeah.
But as they grow older, for them to understand this too, or to have a therapist, somebody walk through this with them to understand there's reasons for this. And it's not that you can't catch up or you're never going to catch up. There is hope and our brains can be rewired. But
Mhm.
this is where you are right now. Let's work with that and let's move you forward.
So, Courtney, you curious? You mentioned the four ages. So, for four categories, what are those? What would be those categories?
Socially, emotionally, cognitively, and then chronologically.
Chronologically. Okay. Yeah.
And
Very.
there's
Yeah.
more. I think a therapist could get in even deeper, but those are like the four big
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. Chris, so I'm curious, you guys confess having that unusual experience of Kayla leading in this space, and then you being the um, behind, supporting from behind and all that.
Along for the ride.
Yeah, along for the ride, and then you're on the ride, and you're like, oh, here we go, and and I think a lot of times because the wives, the moms are more tuned in and thinking about this. They feel ready for it and experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, how did you feel going into it, and what did you bring to this in your own
Yeah,
experience that you feel like was helpful?
absolutely. So for a while prior to our kid being placed with us, we noticed some patterns and things within his family life. And I told Kayla, if anything ever happened that he needed somewhere to live, like our house is always open. And so for him specifically, it was always a green light, regardless of what was going to happen. And this was
Mm-hmm.
before anything ever happened, which is nice because when we found out, it wasn't a question that Kayla had to ask me. It was
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is what's going to happen. And I'm like, yep, absolutely 100% in. As far as experiences that are helpful, so I grew up with divorced parents, who struggled a lot with substance abuse, and I lived in a homeless shelter when I was young with my mom. It was for women with children. So I kind of understand the
Wow.
knowing where I belong and everything else. And as a child, for me, I was pretty young, so it was more running around playing hide and seek and getting caught by the nuns and them dragging me back to my mother, which was fun. You know, I have a weird relationship with nuns; they freak me out, but for a reason. You know, it's a good reason. Uh, and then I myself struggled with substance abuse and alcoholism and everything else, and so I have the ability to have the hard conversations with people who are either dealing with substance abuse themselves or dealing with people in their lives that have substance abuse, in a way of explaining to them that, like, it is a bad thing that's happening currently, but it doesn't make them bad, you know? And to be able to show someone that they can have this past of being an addict or having these issues and still be able to come out and be a healthy individual and be able to help others also. So you
Man,
don't have to
I
be,
bet that gives them a lot of hope. That's
yeah.
great.
So it's good.
So I want to pause there for a second because I think some of our listeners might be thinking, "Gosh, my past disqualifies me." And you just illustrated, like, no, actually, you can take what was a hard and hurtful and harmful, maybe even experiences in your life, but if you're in a healthy place now, where you've overcome them, that can lead to a lot of advantages as far as being able to relate and empathize, be able to say, "Look, I've been there," and your past doesn't have to hold you back, and your future can be better. At the same time, on the other side, I want to make sure that people who are currently struggling, that they don't think, "Oh, my experiences are going to be helpful." It's like, well, not until you're healthy.
Yeah.
You got to get past
That
it.
work through your trauma.
Yeah. Yes.
And everything else. And therapy is definitely the best way to go about it, you know, because not working through those and still having that in your past doesn't help you unless
Right.
you've gone through the steps of working through your issues.
Yeah. It's similar but different. I know someone that's coming to mind who got their heart got open to this. They stepped into it, but their past trauma as a child, um, it became triggering to them. It re-triggered some old stuff, and so just kind of be very self-aware of how far along you are in your own healing and what you can handle and what you can't.
Hmm. I'm just curious, again, going back to kiddo placed in your home for 2 months now. I would love to hear what your goals and motivations are for the future, both for him and for yourselves.
Yeah. I think, honestly, as far as goals and motivations, we want, reunification is the goal. We want his parents to heal, and we want him to feel safe. If reunification can happen. Um, but we're kind of like, we're here for whatever that looks like. If he's reunified, if he's not reunified, um, we're kind of just along for the ride. And yeah, I wouldn't really have it any other way, I guess. We have a cordial relationship with his parents, and that's nice because um we want to be part of his life for as long as, you know, they allow us to be, in whatever capacity that looks like.
And if he's with us for the long haul, we want them to be part of his life as well. Because it's, they're his parents, they're his mom, they're his dad. And, it's important for him to have that connection in the healthiest way possible.
Mm-hmm.
So even if that's not with him being reunified, still him having those bonds is very important.
great that you guys recognize that and can voice that and say that right now. And yeah, just to know that that won't change in you guys. I encourage
Mhm.
you to keep up those relationships. And if you're a listener listening right now and you're considering foster care or you're down this journey or kinship care and you're like, I just don't know how to be fully on board for reunification, or I'm struggling with this, we do have a webinar. It's called Fostering Biofamily Relationships. It's for free on fostercon.org. And I highly suggest people listen to it. We have a mom who was reunified with her kids and a current foster mom or prior foster mom, I should say, and they just talk about their experiences and the mom about reunification and what worked well, what did not work well, people that supported her and didn't. And it's very eye-opening to hear from that perspective of it as well.
Yeah. Well, Chris and Kayla, thank you so much for sharing your experience and for the way you're doing it. I know some families go into it and everybody's got good hearts and really wanting to help. Uh, but I love that your flexibility. Some families are like, we just want to be your forever family. And then other families are like, we're not going to be your forever family, but we're for now family. But I would put you guys in the flexible family. Like it's
Yeah.
For as
whatever
long
you
as
need.
needed.
Yep.
Mm.
So grateful for your attitude and your hoping to cheer on everybody involved, the kids and the extended near family and extended family. So grateful for you and thank you for sharing your experience and insights. I know a lot of people who are not just far behind you, who are just like, we might become foster parents real soon. Probably love hearing this fresh perspective.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you guys so much. Yeah, we appreciate it. Yeah, we're in it for the long haul, whatever that looks like. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. God bless you guys.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Appreciate you.
All right. Bye.
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 We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, will you help us reach more people by subscribing, sharing the podcast with a friend, and leaving a 5-star review? If you've been inspired by what you've heard today and want to learn more of how you can make a difference for kids in foster care and the foster families where you live, visit americaskidsbelong.org. We depend on individual donors to fund our work. We'd be grateful if you would consider joining us as a monthly donor. Visit americaskidsbelong.org to make your tax-deductible donation. Thank you. Together, we can ensure family for every child in foster care and a foster-friendly community to ensure every foster family feels loved and supported.